6:16 on the morning show with Jeff and Will. We are back on this sunny Monday morning, and joining us as she does most Mondays around this time. We missed you last week, Tina, but we are glad to have you back for 2 weeks worth of Rockland County business news. So why don't we get right to her? Tina Traster of the Rockland County Business Journal joins us. Good morning, Tina.
Good morning. Yes, I did. It was a little bit of a hiatus, Memorial Day, and then I actually took a little vacation.
Ooh, well, it's a much-needed vacation. There's a lot of work you do around the county, may I say, and so I'll say it's well-deserved.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's get to it, though.
Yes.
So on June 25th, Clarkstown is set to vote on a proposed agritourism law. And at first glance, that sounds really good because, promoting agritourism is a boon for any county. We have, precious little open space left, particularly working farms. And, people want to be in that environment, and they want to be around things that grow, and they want the pleasure that goes with it. So Clarkstown has proposed a law that would, let me see how to explain this, that would make it, you need to have at least no fewer than 10 acres in order to participate in agritourism. Okay. Now, the problem with that is it's twofold. One is that there's really only one property that fits this description, and that's the Red Barn Cidery at the Davies Farm. The other is that smaller farms, smaller acreage, for example, would need to get over the high bar of applying for a variance from the town's zoning board of appeals if this local law is adopted. So it's unclear why Clarkstown would create a zoning code that would permit agritourism uses in all residential zones, but then limit it to 10 acres, properties that have at least 300 feet of frontage on a state or county road, and those that can provide a 300-foot buffer to neighboring residential property. Now, we know that what's prompted this is next door in the town of Orangetown. You know that I think it's going on 3 years, there's been a running battle over the use of the Van Houten farm, which opened up a cidery back in 2019 during the pandemic. It was a great retreat for many people who were looking to be outdoors and to be able to socialize safely. But it was also a great annoyance to its neighbors, and that has been an issue that is still unresolved, and that is still with the town of Orangetown, and it's actually not its planning board, but at the town, which is being asked there to create a zone amendment that would allow the use of cidery. In that town, they're looking at parcels that are at least 5 acres. But back to Clarkstown, the Davies farm, like many farms, and this is really the story, the larger story here is that for farms to really to survive, to thrive at this point, they need to diversify. This is the argument that the cidery in Orangetown has been making all along, is that they can't just survive selling produce. So the same thing, it was the same story with the Davies farm. We wrote about this when they first opened up the Red Barn Cidery, and I think by all accounts, it's been a pretty successful venture. This is a 65-acre farm which has 4,500 apple trees, and they really have, the setup for this. And they went ahead and opened up the cidery, and presumably, didn't need any kind of permitting or special permission. But the town planner in Clarkstown said at the last planning board meeting that this law, once it's adopted, would bring that farm into compliance. Now, there are a couple of other farms in Clarkstown, notably the Cropsey Farm, which is farmed by the Rockland Farm Alliance. We've talked about that on this show, too. These town-owned, and also the Traphagen Farm on Germans Road in Clarkstown. So these properties wouldn't be impacted because they're town or town and county owned. But the problem becomes, there are, for example, we wrote another story last week about a gentleman who's just purchased 3 acres in New City, and he has decided that he is going to bring back winemaking, and has just, I'll talk about that story in a second, but he's just planted 300 vines, grapevines, in order to bring back a property that was once making wine. His property, if he wanted to participate in some sort of agritourism, would be problematic because he's only got 3 acres, and some of the other specifications don't apply. So this is, I don't know really what the town board was thinking, really, with just being able to apply a law to really one applicant. But I would imagine that, anybody out there who is purchasing some parcel and has some notion of doing anything that promotes agriculture, promotes farming, fits under the definition of agritourism, needs to probably step forward now before the town passes this law, and let the town officials know, of their plans or why this is too exclusionary for other farms. So it's agritourism is become a real staple of traveling, no matter where we are. I think when we travel, we look for a cidery, a winery, a distillery, farms. We look for those things. They're really significant in the tourism. It's something that people do with their, it can be romantic. It's something that families do. So, Clarkstown, Rockland County, there's definitely there's an awareness that there needs to be a preservation of these open spaces, but particularly when you've got the opportunity to use these spaces productively for agritourism, it should certainly be encouraged. I think that there's nobody who would disagree with that. I mentioned that we also put up a story about Marvin Baum. He bought what was known as the Salloway Farm in New City, and like I said, he has. You may some may remember the High Tor Vineyards. That was a different piece of property that has been saved forever, just as open space. But Baum plans to use his 3-acre property. He has named it High Tor Vineyards, and he's basically going to produce wines here in Clarkstown. There was a time, actually, when the Hudson Valley was a huge player in winemaking. I can't think of another grape grower right now in the county. So this would be a real renaissance for an industry that was once very prominent in the county. Um, but he is going to run up against this issue with if this agricultural zoning amendment is adopted. He will be limited just to growing and perhaps making wine, but unable to, let's say, have a tasting or have groups come and experience what it is he's doing, because the law would preclude that for anybody, like I said, who's got space that's or has got a spread that's under 10 acres, and who can jump through the hoops of the zoning board. And then, just in contrast, we also, as you said, I haven't been on the radio for two weeks, but we also did a story on 2 mega warehouses that are proposed for 38 acres off Neola Road in Congress. And while it's not that land is being used for farming, but this is it's wooded, it's open space, and there's an applicant. They're called Vanta Developers, a Brooklyn-based developer of industrial properties that wants to put in 500,000 square feet of new warehouses. So, we are constantly seeing the threat of development pressure in Clarkstown, in Orangetown, these massive warehouses, storage facilities. It's a real. This project it's interesting, but in this case, and this is an unusual move, the developer has actually given itself a positive declaration, which basically means that they recognize that there's going to be a lot of environmental issues. But still, in the end of the day, it seems that these warehouses generally do get built, and they are massive, and they remove thousands of trees and open space. So the balancing act is it's difficult, and it boils down to really the two issues, environment and economics. And so to come full circle, I think that many would agree that if Clarkstown and the towns around the county can use its open space, its farms, its agritourism as an economic engine, that's a plus. Something of a balancing act to all of the development pressures that are encroaching. So that's kind of today's conversation. Any thoughts?
There's not much I could say. You pretty much covered every single aspect of this story in its entirety, and it's just the kind of thorough journalism that one can expect when visiting rcbizjournal.com and the folks over at the Rockland County Business Journal. Thank you so much, Tina Traster, for joining us this morning. We appreciate that, and we will talk to you, unless you have another vacation planned, next week.
Sadly, I don't. So I'll speak to you next week.
All righty. Well, we will see you then.